Hi everybody, this is Jimmy DeYoung and welcome to Prophecy Today video. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu gave a policy speech to talk about how there could be a possibility for a Palestinian state in the region. Indeed, they would have to recognize Israel as a Jewish state, and then Netanyahu said Israel and the Jewish people would accept a Palestinian state, howbeit it must be demilitarized. What does all this mean? Well, we've got a group of broadcast partners to help you understand it. Here's the first one, David Dolan. Give us the reaction in Israel to Netanyahu's speech.
His conditions, of course, were immediately rejected by the Palestinian Authority leaders. So basically he was saying, yes, we will allow a state, but it will be a state that is basically subservient to Israel, in effect what he was saying. And of course the reasons he gave for that was because of the security reality. They simply cannot have an armed Palestinian state right at Jerusalem's doorstep. Obama in his speech said, this is a personal interest of mine to see a Palestinian state established, and I will personally pursue it. The Israeli public didn't want to see Netanyahu to be appearing to slap Obama in the face because, of course, America remains Israel's most important strategic ally.
Danny Dayan is the chairman of Yesha. That is the organization of Jewish settlements in Judea and Samaria. Danny, I understand you thought the speech was okay except for one sentence. Tell us what you're talking about.
It was quite a good speech, except for one very unfortunate sentence, the sentence regarding the creation of a Palestinian state, whether demilitarized or not. But unfortunately, this sentence is the sentence that set the tone for the whole speech, in some way obliterated all the other good things that he said. I fear that it will be remembered as the speech in which Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu agreed to the creation of a Palestinian state in the biblical parts of the land of Israel, and in that respect it was a very unfortunate speech.
Itamar Marcus heads up an organization called Palestinian Media Watch. They keep a focus on what the Palestinian media is saying. How did the Palestinian people and the media react to Netanyahu's speech, Itamar?
The Palestinians have said that it would be essentially forever, 1,000 years before they would accept his conditions. And that's clearly the case. The Palestinians don't want to recognize Israel as a Jewish state. They will refuse to recognize the Jewish historical connections to land. It's a basic part of their ideology to deny that the Jews had a history in the land, and for them also to accept a state that's demilitarized is also impossible, because for them a militarized state that could eventually attack and destroy Israel is a message they've been giving to their people for the very longest time. So on all levels, they reject Netanyahu's speech, and it's important to understand the reasoning, because what it once again shows Israel and makes clear, and the world should recognize this, Israel does not yet have a partner who wants peace.
Elwood McQuaid is a student of Bible prophecy and a Christian Zionist. He believes God's word will play out, and there is a plan for the Jewish people yet in the future. Elwood, give us how you look at what Benjamin Netanyahu had to say.
My reaction was, number one, we have to understand that Benjamin Netanyahu is under such immense pressure that has been unparalleled in the history of the State of Israel, from the current administration, to knuckle under on the two-state issue, to also give in on the issue of settlements, in order to make this administration look good and accomplish personal and administration purposes. Now, having said that, the speech that Netanyahu made was interesting in the fact that, number one, he held his ground on settlement expansion. It isn't taking territory. It isn't establishing new settlements. It's just expansion within the settlements that exist now. What he had to say, and the Palestinians rejected categorically, as they have any other thing, was he made a very good case for, look, if you want a state, it has to be reciprocity. The Palestinians are not being asked currently to give up anything, and they're just playing the game of waiting. They say, we have plenty of time, we're going to wait. But Netanyahu's speech, in every respect, I think, legitimatized the position of Israel.
Well, those broadcast partners helping us understand the reaction from the Palestinian people, the Jewish settlers, the body politic of Israel, in effect, as they listen to Prime Minister Netanyahu and his policy speech on the peace process in the Middle East. May I share a couple of thoughts with you as we conclude our time together? supposedly there is going to be a Palestinian state because there was a Palestinian state. Well, that's a wrong premise. There never has been in the history of the world a Palestinian state. Remember, 400 years before the British took over, the Ottoman Empire, the Turkish Empire, from 1515 to 1917, was in charge of that region of the world that we know today as Israel, plus all the rest of the Middle Eastern Arab states as well. There was no Palestinian state. And then the Ottoman Empire was defeated by the British Empire in 1917 under the leadership of General Allenby there in the Jezreel Valley, and the Brits took over. They controlled that region of the world until 1948, when the United Nations allowed the Jewish state to establish themselves there in the land of their forefathers, the nation of Israel. There was a partition plan in effect, which would have given the Palestinian people a Palestinian state. Palestinians rejected it. They thought they would drive the Jews out of the land and rid that part of the world from a Jewish state. They did not do it. But today, there are those who want to implement a two-state solution. President Obama of the United States is saying we must have a two-state solution. The peace envoy for the quartet, which is the United States, United Nations, the European Union, and Russia, that would be the former Prime Minister of Great Britain, Tony Blair, says indeed there must be a two-state solution, but he also said there's a possibility that this peace deal could come together within the year. He said that Benjamin Netanyahu made a step forward when he conceded there could be a state, even though it be a demilitarized state. Many people are concerned about what that actually means. Well, that's the political aspect of this. The prophetic aspect is this. The book of Malachi, the last prophecy in the Old Testament in chapter 1, says that the Edomites, that would be the Palestinian people of today, coming from the line of Esau, twin brothers with Jacob, the Edomites would return and they would rebuild. Talking about maybe a Palestinian state, but the Lord told Malachi to write it down. Any borders that the Palestinian people put in place, they would be borders of wickedness. They will endeavor to wipe the Jewish people off the face of the earth. In fact, that's exactly what the prophecy of Ezekiel says. Ezekiel 35, verse 5, these Edomites, the Palestinian people, will rise up, kill these Jewish people that are trying to live at peace in the land. And then in verse 10 of chapter 35 of Ezekiel, it says that the Palestinians will try to take the land that God gave the Jewish people away from them, and that God would consider blasphemy against him. Finally, the little book of Obadiah, the smallest book in the Old Testament, in the last couple of verses talks about what will actually happen at the end time when Jesus Christ comes back. Though the conflict, this Israeli-Palestinian conflict, will continue from today even until the time of the rapture of the church and through the 7-year tribulation period, it will not be resolved until Jesus Christ steps back on the earth. And at that time, the text talks about Esau being the stubble in a fire. The fire would be Jacob and their descendants. Jacob, the Jewish nation of Israel, would be the flame. Esau, the Palestinian people of today, would be the stubble, and they will be consumed, and they will be as if they had never been. Jeremiah 49:18 says they will be as Sodom and Gomorrah. We can talk about the political today, but the prophetic will be fulfilled. You can write that down. That is an absolute. Before that, of course, before all of this is concluded, the rapture of the church must take place when Jesus calls us to be with him. And you know, the rapture could happen at any moment. There's nothing left for me to say except let's keep looking up until